Mic check.
Hey, Mayor.
What's up, Joe?
Have my volume down. How you doing?
What if I told you I was doing wonderful?
I believe it. I totally believe it.
All is well. What about you, Joe?
Good. Yeah, doing well. Doing well.
Good. Kids ready to go back to school?
I drove them past the high school today, and I said, "There's your home away from home," and they were like, "Oh,
Oh, come on, y'all.
Yeah, they're not ready. So
They're not.
I mean, they're ready, but not ready. So
Well, guess
bittersweet,
what? Guess what? It's about to happen.
It is. Anthony's been back for a bit because band. He's a leader in band, so he's been doing it for 2 weeks, and now it's the full band camp. So he's already in a routine. Well, glad to see you. The Zoom is up and running for you today.
Oh my God, Joe! And the crazy thing, so yesterday I pinged Caitlin and I was like, "Hey, will you open the meeting up so I can test everything out?" Her and I went back and forth for about 10 minutes. And then I said, well, let me go get me something to drink. And then when I tried to come back, nothing.
Pain in the ass.
My life story. It always picks up, though.
Well, today is the important meeting anyway.
Yeah. This is it.
Yep.
We'll figure out how to get it done.
Exactly. We'll do it. I dropped that. Watch out for Hal.
Hey, Curtis.
What's up, Dee Dee?
I'm good. How are you?
Hey, I am well. Just to see your face, the day is, this is it, Dee Dee. And just so you know, I'm still waiting on my shirt that you got on.
Don't you love this color?
Yeah, so much I would like one direct.
Okay, I'll have Matt take his off. I think he has his on today.
So it's gonna take yours and his to fit. So y'all work that out.
Okay, I'll order you one. I know somebody.
Yeah, somebody that signs the checks, right?
Yes. Yep.
I figure if we run till about midnight, we'll get it all done.
No, I'll have to go out about 9. I'm old.
9 is it, Dee Dee?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure Mr. Mueller will get us through.
I'm sure he will.
You got so much confidence in him, Dee Dee.
I do. I have all the confidence in the world in Mr. Mueller.
Hey, when do you want to start yoga again?
Well, it's really funny. I had planned on starting, the week that my brother passed, and I thought, well, we'll wait on that. And so I was so excited to come back to work this week. I couldn't even fit it in the schedule.
Oh, I mean, that's what you call pouring it on right there.
Right.
That is what normally you pour it on to the person that signs the checks, but you signed the check, so I don't know what that was all about. Just let me know when you're ready to go back to yoga, and I'll be there.
Next week.
Oh, bad.
That's bad for you. Okay.
Bad next week, bad.
Okay, so today is what, the 4th?
Mm-hmm.
And yoga's on Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how about the 18th?
Oh, 18th, bad day. Bad. Real bad. Midweek service for church.
Oh. So are we looking into next year?
We'll look at September next month.
Oh, okay. The first Wednesday of September.
That's it. Will you add that to my calendar, please?
Which is the first. I'll put it on your calendar. I sure will.
Caitlin, will you block Dee Dee from my calendar, Are we still having burgers on Sundays at your house, Dee Dee?
Sure. You may not get a burger, but come on over. Look, there's no children that live here. So there's no cooking.
Those days are over.
Those days are over. You're on your own here at my house.
Totally understandable.
Yeah.
Skip the burger, go for the pecan pie or the peanut butter cookies.
Ooh, peanut butter cookie. Oh my God.
Those are homemade.
Yeah.
So homemade as in when?
I don't know.
Uh-huh.
We'll see.
Thanks for that heads up, Joe.
I need to quit talking or I'm gonna get in trouble.
That's right. Tone it down, Dee Dee. Tone it down.
Hello, everyone.
What's up, Tony?
What's going on? It's just been very, very quiet. What's going on?
Dee Dee said she had to stop talking.
Oh my God. Didi, he's bugging you again.
Well, everyone, it is 6 p.m. by at least 3 of my gadgets. So I do believe we can go ahead and open up the council workshop, budget workshop. That's okay. Mr. Mueller, are you there?
I am here.
All right. Ball is in your hands, sir.
All right. Well, I've already pranked Kelly and told her that something was wrong and I wasn't going to be able to do this. So I thought about doing it again and faking some audio and visual problems, but I'll save her the heartache that it would cause. So all right. Well,
whatever you need.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate everyone being here this evening and really looking forward to getting into this budget and talking about the year ahead and really the 5 years ahead, since we do multi-year plans. So let me go ahead and share the screen. Right. Hopefully everyone's seeing that beautiful picture of Town Hall. And so we'll just kind of jump right in, and I'll try to pay attention to several things at once, but if someone has a question, just jump in, or I think you can hit the raise hand. Just do whatever you need to do to get my attention, because I'm kind of seeing the big screen and not the little faces. So to kind of start off, I always like to talk about our process. As you can see, this great picture of our team, nice and colorful. We always like to spruce up the room with our bright colors. But this is a picture of us after our week-long budget retreat that we do as staff. And this is, I think, part of the process that sets us apart from a lot of other organizations. And I think it's what makes our budget process so smooth and hopefully so good when we get the final, or the final proposed product to you. We spend about a week together in a room as a department head team and various other leadership in our organization. And we go through everyone's budget. We go through the budget project by project. We talk about the projects. We share the projects. And this is really, again, what makes it special. The budget process is never really done. I mean, it's always kind of ongoing. We're always doing something with the budget, whether it's auditing the previous year's budget, whether it's thinking about next year's budget, whether it's doing a strategic plan with the council to kind of ascertain your priorities and what the funding priorities are going to be for future budgets. There's usually something with the budget going on. But I guess formally, this year's budget process started back in November when we held a retreat with the current council at the time to go over the strategic plan, where it was, and kind of look forward a little bit. And then fast forward into January, we start working internally, getting some general revenue projections, some ideas. We talk a little bit among staff about some of the big picture priorities. And then that's when our leadership team really goes back and they start doing a lot of the hard work. They start preparing their individual departments' budgets. They propose whatever staffing needs they may have. If they have a request for a staffing increase, they will propose that to our personnel review committee. We look at our vehicle needs, our replacement schedules to see, what may be on the horizon for the coming year. And then they start, reviewing their line items and proposing their supplemental projects. And a supplemental project is basically something that just hasn't been in the budget before. And so any increase to a line item or any new project or program has to go through that process, and they request that as a supplement. Then finance gets that all of those individual departmental budgets, and they put it all together and see how it all ties together with all the fund transfers between different funds and all the the different departments in the general fund versus the utility fund. They put the whole thing together, and it's like a big puzzle. And then we meet at this process in June to go over it and really scrub the budget, talk about, are all of these projects, are they in line with the strategic plan? Are they in line with our core values? Are they truly needs? All of that stuff. And again, this is a little bit uncommon. The two things that I think we do that are not common in local government is that we do this peer review process of our budget, and that we do a 5-year budget. All right, typical budgets, usually a department head or department representative goes into a room with the CFO and the city manager. They go through the budget, they go out, and they know what's happening in their budget. None of their team members, really have an insight of what they're doing. And so what I think is special about this is that it allows all of us to be on the same page. It allows, the parks folks to know what's going on in engineering, and it allows police to know what's going on in public works. And this has been beneficial because we do it as a unified group. And so it's not one of those situations where you have department heads who kind of feel pitted against each other fighting for resources, right? It's all out there on the table. It's all transparent with all of our team. So they know exactly what's happening, and they know if they have something that's cut from their budget, they know why, because they've identified that there's a priority that may need funding in another budget that we have to work with. And so, again, very, very proud of the team. Once again, we had another good year. It was a great year to get back. We actually got to do it fully in person this year, which was not the case last year. We had a little bit of a limited budget retreat in 2020. So to be able to really get in the room together and go through all those budgets was fun. And then again, the other thing that I mentioned that's a little bit unique for us is our 5-year process. And that's kind of a core part of what we want to do. We know that as a growing community, we're adding lots of services and lots of programs that we're adding for the first time. And if you're looking at it just in a 1-year window, sometimes it's easy to do. Say, oh, I can afford this person, this new position. I can afford that this year. But if you're adding a new program or a reoccurring operating expense, you got to ask yourself, okay, well, can I afford this in 5 years? Can I, afford this, multi-year? So that's where that 5-year balanced budget has really helped us. And so our budget overall, the overview this year, as you've seen in your budget book, we're at $116 million. A little over that. So this is pretty significant. I think it's the first time in our history that our budget has crossed the $100 million threshold. I believe we came very close year before last. I think we were at 99.7 or something. But this is the first time that the budget has crossed the $100 million threshold. And that's primarily due to capital projects, right? That's we've got a lot of upcoming capital expenses that hit that. And so I spoke to a few of these already, but just the philosophy we use going forward, the core document that we use in reviewing those supplements and those budget requests is the council's strategic plan. And that's why it's so special for us to try to keep that updated and try to review that with you guys every so often, so that we make sure that there's a unified vision, that there's some unified objectives and goals that you guys have expressed, so that we know what to build off of. Right. I mean, even though we're the ones who propose the budget and present the budget to you, we're trying to do it in a way where it's meeting your needs and your policy objectives. So that council strategic plan is the basis for our prioritization. We always try to maintain a competitive tax rate, which I'm very happy to, as we talked about last night, I'm very happy that we're in a year where we're actually proposing a lower tax rate. In fact, I just went and did a review of the last 10 years. And this is the second most significant tax rate reduction that we've had in the last decade. So it's a pretty good, it's over 0.5 cent reduction that we're proposing. And I think the only other time that we came close to that was 2017. We lowered it by just a little bit more than 0.5%. So we've been consistently going down. In fact, since 2015, our tax rate has gone down by almost 2 cents. So very happy that we're contributing to that this year. So again, that is one of our priorities, is to maintain a competitive tax rate and to bring that rate down when we have the opportunity to. Maintain strong fund reserves, extremely important to us. We know that as a growing community and a growing organization that we have funding opportunities because of our growth right now. But we also know that growth is not going to last forever. So we need to think and plan long term, and we need to have a strong reserve so that we can maintain financial stability years from now. And then maximize efficiency. Efficiency is one of the 4 core values of our organization. And so we look at our budget and look to try to find the most efficient way to provide excellent service and to meet the council's objectives. This is one of those areas where I do think it's the way we do the budget as a group really helps. It really helps us identify those efficiencies where departments can share projects, share resources. So this is the budget philosophy. I guess these are the underlying values that we try to start with whenever we're preparing this final document. Just a little bit of a snapshot of our revenue. You can see the chart there. You may ask yourself why last year's budget looks so much higher in the revenue than this year's budget, and why this revenue doesn't necessarily match the overall budget number that I talked about a few minutes ago. And the simple answer for that is it's all about the debt proceeds. And it's just about the timing. If you see here, these debt proceeds that we've got right there, those are actually going to hit the books in this current year. And right now we're showing revenue, right? We're not showing expenses in this chart, but the debt proceeds are actually hitting the books this year, which inflates the revenue, but the monies won't be spent until the upcoming fiscal year. So that's why there's a little bit of a discrepancy there. It's all about the timing of when the debt proceeds actually come to us. Property taxes and our property evaluation. Our total certified taxable value after all the homesteads with the tax ceiling is estimated in Review Board. So we're at $4.846 billion. That is about $447 million more in assessed valuation than last year. And of that, well over half of it, about a little over 60%, I believe, that 273 is due to new growth. So not increase in values, but new growth hitting the rolls. And so that's a good number. We always like seeing that new growth coming and how it adds to our overall valuation. So you can see our taxable history year after year after year. Again, we've had tremendous growth. I think since 2013, we have nearly doubled in size as a community. So that's certainly reflected in our growth and taxable value. We've seen just tremendous growth. We'll talk about this in a little bit when we get to one of the supplemental items, but the census numbers should come out to cities sometime this month. I think it's August 16th or something like that. It's projected that we're going to be over the 50,000 mark. And I think when we started counting these, we were around 25, 28,000. So you can see we've just had tremendous growth in the community, which is reflected in the total assessed value of our properties in town. Tax rate, once again, we spoke about this last night. Our current rate is right up here, the 0.649702. And again, very excited to be proposing a lower rate of 0.643948. You've got the two rates down here that we're kind of required to publish and look after based on state law. This no new revenue rate, this is what we would have to lower our tax rate to if we were not to receive any revenue growth. And then this voter approval rate is the maximum the tax rate could be without asking the voters to approve it. So yes, we are going down from 0.649702, proposing a lower rate of 0.643948. Where do our taxes go? I think that's sometimes a little bit of a confusing item for a lot of our taxpayers locally, is that you pretty much get one tax bill, right? I mean, there might be some circumstances where you get a supplemental tax bill or two if you're in a special district or something like that. But generally, if you're just a resident of this community, this is the average breakdown of your taxes. 30% of your taxes are going to go to the town of Little Elm. 10% of your taxes are going to go to Denton County. And then on average, 60% of the taxes that you pay are going to go to your school district. All three school districts have a little bit different tax rates. That's why this is kind of the average. But let's say the average tax bill in the town of Little Elm, of a resident living in Little Elm, let's say their average tax bill is $7,000. Only about $2,000 of that actually goes to the town of Little Elm. So the majority of your tax bill actually goes to the school. But I like to break this down because everyone sees the combined tax bill and sometimes they think it's all going to the schools or it's all going to the town, it's all going to the county. That's not the case. Only about 30% of your tax bill actually comes to the municipality. All right, here's our tax rate history by year for the last several years. As you can see, we've stayed pretty constant. 2018, 2019, 2020 were pretty flat. And so, but again, this year we've got the opportunity to propose a lower rate. Also having some great news with sales tax. We're projecting quite a bit of an increase in our sales tax numbers. Part of that is due to great growth in the community. We're still having sales tax growth, which is nice. Also, the pandemic, I think, has changed people's buying habits a little bit in a way that kind of benefits a residential community like Little Elm. A lot of the online sales that we're seeing, we're seeing that increase. People are more apt to kind of buy things online rather than go out in the store, which has been a trend that we've been seeing over the last decade or so. But certainly the pandemic, I think, kind of put this into high gear, and so some of that sales tax growth is definitely attributed to people's change in shopping habits. You can see where some of the other revenue we have in our overall budget. That's what we're having for projected water sales, sewer sales, and then other fees, charges, contributions, and reimbursements. So from the revenue side, we're looking good. Over the 5-year budget, we're still projecting quite a bit of revenue growth. This is very conservative. We budget very conservative revenue growth numbers. We always want to underpromise and overdeliver. So we take a very conservative approach to our revenue growth because it's always great to have a little bit more come in, and then we can reallocate that after the next year once we have it in the bank, rather than come up short and have to scurry around and find projects to cancel. So we are projecting great growth over the 5-year planning horizon.
Hey, Matt.
Yes.
A quick question. So last 2 years, the housing price has been increased like very, very rapidly and stuff for that. And now if it slowed down and it go back to this thing, did we have any accounting for that in your budget and stuff or not? Because right now housing prices is just going to ask anybody. You just
Sure.
30 to 40% up. So how
Right,
do you that make sure?
So that's the reality with the conservative way we look at the revenue numbers. We certainly haven't planned for there to be revenue reductions. We haven't planned for a scenario where our assessed values are going to go down. We just don't think that's realistic. But we're also not planning for property values to continue to grow like they have been, right? So the reality is they will probably grow more than what we've got accounted for in these revenues. These are very conservative revenue projections. I think, Kelly, is it about 2% a year in growth that we're projecting?
Yes, in this 5-year plan, in the outer years, it's a 2% growth.
Right. So I think that you're exactly right. We've seen just skyrocketing, value growth in the last couple of years. That's not likely to sustain, but it's also still likely that we will see growth. And so 2% is kind of the very conservative revenue growth number that we think, and we feel pretty comfortable with that.
Thank you.
All right, jumping into operations a little bit. So when we talk about our budget, right, we've got, and I think I talked about this a little bit at New Council Orientation. So we do fund accounting. And so we have the general fund, the utility fund, some special revenue funds. We've got different funds that kind of operate, somewhat independently of each other. But for a lot of the story that we're telling you tonight, we're combining a lot of those funds just to give you a snapshot of, how we do things. And so what we're doing here is we're giving you kind of a snapshot of our operations. So this is basically all the costs going out except for capital expenditures and transfers. And so this is basically the annual cost to do business in the different departments. So I always think it's good to look at where the money is spent, where our operational costs go. And I think if you looked at most communities, you'd see a pretty similar pie chart. The only exception would be if you were a community that had a higher number of utilities than we did, like electric utility or a gas utility or something like that. You might see some more, but for your typical city, I think this is about pretty common what you see the breakdown. Our highest operational cost is our public safety services. That comes in budget wide at about 36%, followed closely by utilities, pretty even with public works, culture and recreation, general governmental services, and then community services bring in about 6%. So this is where operationally we spend our money. And then if you kind of look, this is kind of how it compares last year. General government, we've seen a little bit of a reduction. Community services, a little bit of an increase. Public works, a little bit of an increase. We're about flat. Culture and recreation. Utilities seeing a little bit of an increase. I do want to point this one out because on the surface, you see that this year, the operational costs in public safety are going down a little bit. That's a little bit misleading. Last year, if you recall, we had all of the upfront startup costs for the Denton County Dispatch Partnership. And that was a little over $2 million of kind of upfront costs that aren't there this year. So if we pull that out of there, the police department's budget actually goes up by about 6%, or close to about $770,000 increase. So that's I wanted to point that one out because that's really uncommon, to see that going down year after year. But we had a pretty big one-time expense last year that we do have in those operational numbers. So overall, again, if you pull the one-time dispatch startup numbers out of there, that operational cost is going up as well. So if we're looking at where are some of with the growth of operational costs, where is it coming from? I always think it's good, to see the big chunks. Where are they coming from? Close to $529,000, $429,000 is attributed to new personnel, new bodies that we'll be bringing in the organization. Compensation and benefits increase. That's always a pretty big, except for, kind of the really big capital projects they're kind of in another category. As far as our operational costs, that our people are our biggest expense. And so this year is a step raise and a COLA. We've got our compensation system. All of the members of our team outside of the executive staff are in a step plan, which they move up year to year. Based on longevity. And then every other year they receive a 2.5% COLA to try to keep up with the North Texas market, which is pretty aggressive. So this year it is a step and COLA year. And so the total cost of that is about $1.3 million. The new ERP, financial and utility billing system. This is a really big project that we've been working on for several years, and think that a lot of it's going to start coming in place this year. This is basically the financial backbone of the city. So we're kind of with a solution now that we've outgrown. And that's some of the challenges that we're seeing right now from a technology standpoint. We've always been very nimble and very ahead of the curve on our technology solutions because we've always been pretty small. And when you're smaller and kind of growing, it's easy to put in new solutions. Well, the challenge with that is sometimes you outgrow those, and which is kind of what's happened in some of our technology solutions. And that is certainly the case with our ERP system. And so that's going to be a big cost in the coming years, is our new financial backbone. So we do have a consultant in there that's helping with implementation, and a lot of the proposals have already come in. GIS enhancements, that's also a pretty big one that we're seeing as a chunk. That includes system improvements and new personnel. But it's really our desire to take our GIS system to the next level. There's so much that we can do with that system that we're not yet. We can enhance our mapping and public communication through performance measures and data through that system. But also we can dramatically improve kind of our asset management. For example, here's one great example of what I'm talking about. We always get a lot of comments about Wood Lake, right? Because we're repairing Wood Lake from Sunflower to 423, usually every other year, if not every year, because it's a very challenging road. Well, we can, if we get our system where we want, we can actually assign an asset number to each of those panels, and we can track those panels' maintenance history. So we can have much better data on actually where we're spending our time doing repairs, where we're replacing things, all that stuff. So this enhancing the GIS system over the next several years is going to help us as we start to make a lot more data-based decisions, particularly in asset management.
Hey, Matt, can you go back, please? Okay, I think next slide. The ERP financial is just a big chunk and stuff. I just want to understand what exactly the software will be doing and stuff.
So the software will be running all of our financial systems, all of our utility billing system, basically everything associated with finance. It is the backbone. So our purchase orders are, I don't think it's not our budget, payroll. payroll, purchasing, utility system, utility billing, all of that stuff is what the ERP system will do.
And this was slated last year, but during COVID, we put it on pause. So we are instituting it back into 2022's budget with a really solid number based on what we have gotten from consultants. And we have some bids that we're reviewing right now and negotiating a contract.
So again, the one thing is like, so we're hoping that software doesn't change, like in next 10 years and stuff, we just have to upgrade, don't have to do a massive upgrade like this. Is that the
This is
game
a
plan?
conversion, actually. This is not even staying with our current system.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the thing. I mean, there will be software updates in the future. There will be growth in the future, but the big thing now is we're changing vendors and we're changing. So we're moving from more of a small town solution to a bigger organization solution. So once this is in place, it should be a nationwide kind of industry standard that we can upgrade along the way rather than have to completely replace. So
Okay, that was my question and stuff. That doesn't have to be like kind of rip and replace in next 10 years and stuff. Then it's
Right.
So,
No.
Thank you, Matt.
Hey, Matt, will municipal courts also be managed in that same system?
They've actually already converted. They converted, I believe, 2 years ago. So they've already had their software conversion, and this software conversion will tie in very closely with that.
Okay, cool.
But the ERP system will be one of the. I mean, it's kind of the thing that sets the standard for every other software solution that we have in the organization. Everything else that we have will somehow have to tie into this. This is kind of the brain and the nervous system, I guess, of the organization. So anything else, any other software solution that we have will need to tie with the ERP. And so that's why it's kind of important that it's the big one that we identify and we establish and before we move forward with other stuff. So yeah, it'll kind of be the main software system of the organization.
Thank you, Matt.
I've kind of got a list. I know you guys, I don't plan on going through each one of these because they are varied in size. I mean, we've got some that are, like the ERP that was 1.1 million and some that are, $4,000. So what I would do, I'll just kind of highlight some of the big ones that I see and then maybe kind of pause on these screens to see if there's any that you want me to expand upon a little bit more. I will highlight this one, the open records request solution and the document management solution. Caitlin's been doing an amazing job over the last year of kind of looking at the new software opportunities that we have to make the administrative services function have a easier access to our citizens and take a lot of the work off staff. And so this is one, the open records request solution that'll make that process more efficient. And then the document management solution, this is also one that we've been talking about for a few years, but have been hesitant to completely go forward with until we got the ERP system decided. This is basically us going paperless. So that we can manage all of our documents, our contracts, our files, our records, so that we can have those not only in a digital format, but have them coded and sorted so that it's easy for everyone to find them. So these are pretty big ones. Trying to look down here, a GIS assessment. I already kind of talked about that one a little bit. The graduate engineer, we'll talk about that when we get into the new staffing requests. The Doe Branch Master Plan, this was a priority that came out of the council retreat that we had in July. So we have started some initial conversations with the Corps of Engineer. I'm not sure at this point what their willingness is going to be. That's why we put this out there in year 2. It's our hope that we'll have a pretty good idea about their willingness to move forward on something in Doe Branch and maybe get past some of their concerns. So we plan on spending year 1 kind of working with the Corps, seeing if there's opportunities for us. And then if they're willing to look at moving forward, we'll have the money set aside so that we can start that master planning process. The potential streetlight maintenance. We have this in there. We had this in there last year, but we actually pushed it forward. This is going to be completely dependent on what our census numbers are. And so, I mentioned earlier that we think that we're going to be over 50,000 now. While that's a cool number and it's cool to say that we're that big, it would be nice if we were 49,999, because if we cross that 50,000 person threshold, we have to take on the expense of traffic signal light maintenance. And so currently, the only traffic signal light maintenance we pay for are on our roads. So anything that's on a TxDOT road, such as El Dorado, 720, 380, it's either maintained by TxDOT or the city of Frisco, but it's all funded by TxDOT. So if we cross that 50,000 threshold, we won't be taking on the function ourselves. We have no plans to start a signal maintenance division, but we will have to take on the payment of that service. So we have this money out there just anticipating what those census numbers may be. If the census numbers come in under 50,000, this is a significant amount of money that's freed up out of the 5-year budget. But it's looking more and more likely like we will cross that 50,000 threshold and have to take this on in the next couple of years. Anything else that you'd like me to expand upon on that page? Okay. Next page. Nothing huge and significant. A lot of these are just maintenance and operational needs in public works. Kind of the big ticket item on this page is the new backhoe. So that's a pretty big replacement, big piece of equipment that we have. Also have a new 3/4 ton truck in there that we have for public works. Is there anything I can expand upon on that?
So Matt, was it just a need that we got a new backhoe because ours is just worn down, or we just needed one in addition to what we had?
Jason, you want to handle that one? You want to talk about why?
Sure. So it's actually replacing an older, very old backhoe actually that kind of went out of service several years ago, but we've been using it and it finally just died on us completely.
Okay, perfectly fine.
All right, continuing on with public works, you can see they've got a few more items in here. One of which being a staff person, which we'll talk about those in a little bit. A new vehicle for the utility systems person. Some lakefront trail drainage improvements. As we all know, our lakefront trail, it's great, but it is in, portions of it are in the floodplain, and when we get heavy flooding, after having it in place for a few years, we've seen some of the areas that we need to do some maintenance. And so this is a maintenance solution that we can do, so we have fewer washout areas and fewer areas that get damaged with heavy rain in the lakefront trail. Moving down to community services. We've got some kind of a bigger one right here, fire station number 2, access gate, fencing, and parking. This is adding some security to that station. That's kind of the equivalent of what we see in some of the other stations. Just sad way of the world. Public facilities are needing more and more access controls just because of certain threats or certain situations that may exist. And right now, Fire Station 2 is completely exposed. There's no access gates, to the back of the station. So this adds a level of security for those folks. Based on the input and the feedback and priorities of the council retreat, we do have the demolition of the Middleton property in here. So we estimate that that's going to be about $75,000. So kind of the plan, if and when this is all approved, we will allow the SWAT team to use that facility for training for a little bit, and then allow the fire department to have some fun training with fire in that building, and then ultimately we will solicit bids to have that structure removed from the property. Got a few other pieces of equipment for parks, adding some additional aeration for the athletic fields, a new truck, a new workman. Keep getting that little, I wish I could make that go away. I'm sorry, I don't know what, I guess I have to wait for a second. But just pretty much operational equipment. Any other questions on that page? Okay. Continuing on with community services. The only other kind of thing I'll highlight a little bit, this is the first time that we've actually got some funds in our hotel motel tax fund. we established that fund, many years ago, but never had anything going into it. So while we don't yet have a hotel, we are starting to see revenue from the Airbnbs ever since the council, Airbnb or short-term rentals. I guess I can't short-term rentals because there's all sorts of, VRBO, Airbnb, but council established our regulations for short-term rentals a few years ago. And part of that was that those short-term rentals did pay the hotel motel tax. So we're actually seeing some revenue in that. That revenue is intended to be used for tourism-based marketing and activities. And so we thought the thing to do this first year would be to beef up the concert series that we have at the park and use some of that money for that. So that'll be in partnership with between our Parks and Rec department and then Jeanette with the chamber. So that's kind of exciting that we have some of those funds to put towards these programs now.
Hey, Matt, question. When the RV park does eventually get done, that'll also generate tax for that fund, won't it?
That's a good question. Do you know the answer to that, Kelly? Is there hotel motel tax on?
I'm thinking that might be just a fee that we develop for staying at the park, not a tax. Because it's usually based on your base amount with 7%, which is our hotel tax rate.
Yeah, that's a good question. We'll dive into it more, but I'm not sure. So, but yeah, we definitely expect this to grow with the hotel actually coming to town, and so over the next several years, we'll have more of an opportunity to market the lakefront, contribute to events, and just continue to increase our special events and our tourism-based programming. All right, moving down into public safety. Kind of highlight the public safety analyst. This has been in there for a few years. That's going to be exciting. Again, it's going to allow us to make a lot more data-driven decisions in police. Kind of go hand in hand, I guess, in a way with the GIS system. They'll be heavily using the GIS system as they're doing crime tracking, traffic, mapping, whatever it is that they do. But this is going to be an analyst for public safety that'll work with police, fire, emergency management in order to just kind of best determine where we need to allocate resources, where we need to, increase patrols, just kind of all that stuff, so we can take a more of a data-driven approach. The overtime relief firefighter. So Chief Rust kind of ran the numbers. Fire department scheduling is usually very challenging with the shift work that they do. There's a certain amount of built-in overtime that just exists in all of their schedules, and then there's a lot of additional overtime that happens because people are using their vacation and they're using they're coming in sick, all those things. And so when he ran the numbers, he found that we could hire a what we call a relief firefighter, basically kind of a floating firefighter that could go and work the shifts when people are on vacation or sick, whatever it may be. And it's pretty much a wash with what we spend on overtime that's generated. So we thought that would be a great morale booster because it kind of lessens or maybe expands the ability for our folks to use their leave time without as many restrictions. And so that's one we're pretty excited about. Dispatch software and RMS system, that's still a part of the big Denton County Dispatch partnership that we're currently involved with, which we still assume is going to go live in October. So I think that's still on track. Rodney, is that accurate? I don't see Joe's name, but there's Joe. You're up there. Who are we still on track with that?
We're still on track. It's actually the week before October. It goes live, September 24th. I want to say.
The other radios for the command vehicle, we put that in there. That was one of the things we made the budget amendments in June, and we've got the command vehicle on order. The one thing that doesn't come with that is the radios that we need, and so this is a request for the radios to equip that command vehicle when it comes in. The bulletproof vest for fire. This is something that the Fire Association came to us with and asked if we'd consider this program. Again, there's a lot of overlap sometimes with police calls and fire calls. And when we have situations that there may be an active shooter, or there may be a dangerous situation, we want to make sure that our fire department is as well protected as they can be. And so they came and requested if we could start a bulletproof vest program for the fire department. These will be kept kind of hidden in the trucks. This isn't something that we're going to go out and advertise a lot. They're not going to be wearing them on every call, but if we have a call that is violent in nature or could pose some risk, these vests will exist in the fire truck so that our fire personnel, our EMS personnel, can wear them so that if they're having to make rescues and do their work in a tense situation, that they'll be better protected. Any other question about those? Okay.
Hey, I had Matt, I'm looking at the electronic copy you sent us.
Uh-huh.
And under public safety, on the one you sent, the top line says take home vehicle for patrol officers.
Let's see here. You're right. Is that not in there?
And
No.
vehicle for new to
It's not in there. It's in different side.
No, you're right. We don't have that in there. That must have got. I wonder if I bet it got cut off on the chart. I'm sorry about that. Yeah.
There's been cut and paste miss, but yeah.
Yeah. So that is the vehicle for the new detective. That's just the vehicle needed to staff them up in year 2. But the take home vehicles, that's something we've been working towards for a few years, and I'm excited to say that we have the fund balance in the VERF to do that this year. So what this allows us to do is to go to a 1 car per officer program. Excuse me. Studies have shown that you can actually increase the life of your cars and increase the efficiency and the cost if you don't have them running 24 hours a day, which is basically what they do now. So this has been something we've wanted to do for several years, and finally just in a position with our fund balance in the VERF. So and a lot of this is due to the partnership we have with Enterprise. Someone managing our fleet and our replacement schedule, has helped us identify where we can maybe reduce some of the fund balance and still, have our vehicles replaced on their designated schedule. But yeah, this is moving us towards where every police officer will have their own vehicle and they're not sharing vehicles.
Hey, Matt, same time assuming that we'll have backup vehicles too, right? Just in case if the vehicle is in the shop or something happened and stuff, they have backup vehicles.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's yeah. I mean, I don't know that there's, vehicles that are just going to be sitting unused, but yeah, with the more vehicles in the fleet, the less downtime there will be when we do have vehicles off, for their routine scheduled maintenance.
Yeah, I was glad to see. I know we've been working towards that for several years. That's why I didn't see it on the left, but I saw it on the right. So I want to make sure I asked a question.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't even notice that. I bet since it was on the end of one page and this is the beginning of the other, it's probably a cut and paste situation. And it makes me really, really happy because now I know that you guys are actually reading the stuff that I said. That really, that's awesome. All right, continuing on in public safety, we do have a new vehicle proposed for our fire administrative officer. We added a training officer position to the fire department this year. Actually, we reduced one of the positions in the administrative services department, and we let fire have it because they had a need for a training officer. So but they still need to be equipped with a vehicle. Replacement of public safety drones. I'll touch on that one because that's a pretty cool program that we have that is a little bit unique, and we're kind of on the leading edge in the region for that. We've got a pretty solid drone program in public safety and emergency management. But as technology does, it becomes outdated and we need to replace it with the new. So this is just kind of keeping our drones fresh and the technology fresh. And so we are replacing some of those. All right, information technology. Big one I'll just touch on is down here in actually year 2. Cybersecurity has been a huge priority for us over the last couple of years. We've taken great steps over the last couple of years to improve our backups, to do some security testing. This proved extremely valuable. This time last year. When was that? When did we get hit, Joe? Was it this time last year?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, it was the fall.
So if we hadn't had a lot of those backups in place, we would have been in a very bad situation. But fortunately, we're certainly not immune. This is something we have to keep up with all the time. There's more and more attacks on cities. They're being targets of ransomware and all those kind of things. But this is just for us to try to stay as current as we can with some pen testing and security upgrades. And so that's a big one that I wanted to point out, because that's a very, very serious situation for us. That we're kind of constantly under attack or constantly under threat of that right now. So we are making additional improvements there. All right. Any questions that I can answer about this page or any of the other one-time expenses or new programs?
Hey, Matt, do we have any plan to hire our own? Like right now, I think if I remember correctly, we have IT outsourced mostly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are we having any plan to have our own internal person hired as we keep growing?
Not in the areas that we have now. I mean, we definitely we do have our own people on the help desk side, but we're very satisfied with our relationship with our managed service provider. So I mean, it's my plan to kind of have it continue to be half and half, to where we have a lot of the frontline help desk staff here, but for the bigger stuff, that we continue to work with a managed service provider, because we just get such a wide array of skills that's hard to get in just one person. So,
okay.
Hey man, I know in my work we have never used Zoom. We've used WebEx, and over the last 30 days, I've been notified that we are going away from WebEx and going to Microsoft Team. Do you know? I mean, they tell me it's going to do the same thing that WebEx and Zoom does, but apparently we're going to save a ton of money at work. And plus, again, I mean, AIG is just crazy about security, and apparently Microsoft Team offers some security benefits, what I'm being told, is why we're doing it. So I just thought I'd throw that out there if we hadn't looked at it, maybe something to look at, or I guess.
Yeah, I think when we had traditionally used WebEx. In fact, our at the fire stations, they've got a whole kind of WebEx system that they can communicate from the rooms with each other. But what we found when we first got into this pandemic, WebEx was a huge drag on the bandwidth. And so we kind of had to switch over, and Zoom was the quickest, most, the simplest solution. So we've just kind of used that. We actually use Microsoft Teams as well.
Okay.
We do have that included. So depending on the meeting, we primarily use Zoom, but we do have the ability to also use Teams, and we do use WebEx for certain things as well.
Yeah, I mean, I just got it 2 days ago, so I cannot speak intelligently about its functioning. There's no the answers I got when I asked questions as to why we were changing after all these years. So.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, you'll enjoy Microsoft Teams. Raytheon and Department of Defense just went all the way Microsoft Teams about a month or so ago. So once you get used to it, you'll love it.
Oh, good.
All right. Well, now I'll move on to some of the bigger ones and kind of talk these through. Now, these are a little bit separated. They are part of the budget, but they are not really beholden to a certain fiscal year, if that makes sense. These are the big projects that kind of span, fiscal years. And so they're pulled out and in the capital fund in a lot of ways. And a lot of these come from the priorities that you expressed at our capital retreats or capital workshop in July. So we do have plans for the Lakeside Middle School softball improvements. Chad's currently working to get a design on that. We anticipate that to be about $5.9 to $6 million, and that's going to include the 3 new softball fields and the concession stand. Then we also have the Cottonwood Creek baseball improvements, which will be to turf all of the infields of those amenities. And then we have the Little Elm Park camping improvements. This will be to add the restroom, shower facility, and do kind of the designated campsites and some other on-site improvements over at Little Elm Park. Those were the 3 projects that came out of the capital workshop that the council expressed a desire to fund this year. So we do have those kind of in motion in certain ways. and then we'll talk about the CO issuance at the end when we get to debt. But we've got a plan in place to get those started and get those going. Doe Branch Park, we already mentioned that earlier. We do have money set aside in year 2 to conduct a master plan. I will say that one will be contingent on the Corps being willing to work with us. And I think that we may have some work to do there, but we want to go ahead and plan that out because if the opportunity presents itself, that would be another great park that we want to start the planning process for. I've got the mountain bike trail in here. We don't have a funding number associated with it because it was out of the meeting. I think kind of the direction that we got from council was that we wanted to work with some neighboring groups or some community groups like the Dallas Off-Road Bicycle Association or others that may be interested. And we would be potentially open to doing the design, but we would want a partner to come in and construct and maintain. So we do have this as a project that we'll work on, even though we don't have an idea of what funding it might take at this point. King Road reconstruction. This has been a project that's been on our books for several years, and I think that we're getting very close to getting that done. We just got an agreement from the county today, a draft of an agreement today that will help have them participate. So this is going to be a multi-party program which will improve King Road all the way from Witt down past. Doug, where does it? What's the project footprint of this construction?
It's from Witt Road going west down to Rose Lane. So it'll be sections of it will be 4-lane. There is an area that'll reduce down before it gets to Rose Lane. It'll be in Little Elm, Frisco, Hackberry, and Denton County jurisdictions.
The financial and billing software, we spoke of that one. The McCord Park water reuse line. This is a line that will serve our irrigation needs by using reuse water. So we'll eliminate the need for potable water. This has been on the design table for some time. It's been a project that's been there for a few years. We anticipate using American Rescue and Recovery Act money for this. It's an eligible project. Cottonwood Creek Park, obviously the big one that's been a priority for several years. This is the total current budget amount for that project. We've already spent close to $400,000 of that was budgeted out of the CDC budget last year. This is the phase 1 Cottonwood Park project that you've seen several presentations on. Per the direction of council at the last workshop, we will be prioritizing project alternatives in this. So we will be prioritizing getting both restroom facilities, the boardwalk, the kayaks, a very good playground. So we will be prioritizing those. With that being the case, there's a good chance that we'll need to add some money to this. But I think that's okay. I mean, council and CDC both said that this project and then different components of project, future versions of this project were some of the highest priorities. So we will be prioritizing making sure we can have that be a full project. Right now, we've got about 5.35 left in the budget for that, but there could potentially be some money added to this depending on what those bids will come in at over the next several months. Anyone have any questions about that one? I know that's a big one that's very important to the council. Okay. The lawn at the lakefront. This is the great, mixed use urban park that will exist around the Tin Man water tower. And so that's going to be very exciting. We hope to have that complete about the same time that the entertainment venue will be opening. Lakefront parking. I don't know that this is the best title for this, but this is basically the public parking component for that entertainment venue and the lawn park. So this is currently underway. I believe debt was sold for this earlier this year. The TxDOT Green Ribbon Program. This is a grant program that we've been working with on TxDOT for some time to improve the medians on 423, replant some plantings with Eldorado West and make those general improvements in our median. The wayfinding signage. I believe, Fred, you've got a bid that's coming pretty soon on this, don't you?
Actually, we approved it yesterday.
All right, great.
So yeah,
we approved the bid for this project. This was split over 2 years, coming out of the landscape fund. I think you're all familiar with it. We've touched on it before, but this is the unified signage around town that will give direction and point directions to the significant areas of interest in Little Elm. The wastewater treatment plant expansion. I'm not sure if you've been to the wastewater treatment plant or seen their lab, but it's a very small building that is just not sufficient for their needs. And so this is an expansion of their lab so that they can do their testing and conduct their business in an appropriate facility. Fire station number 4. This is not the structure itself. That's being covered by the developer of the Spiritas Ranch project. But we have started planning and programming for the staffing, which you'll see when we get down to the staffing a little bit. But I think we plan on this station beginning in 2023 or so, and we're looking at the fiscal year 2025 that we think that it will be complete. So this is the staffing and equipment costs for that. Police growth contingencies. You won't see this in our staffing levels at this point, but basically what we've done, anticipating the growth rate of Spiritas Ranch, we've just gone ahead and set aside a chunk of money in future years of the budget to establish a new police beat out on 380, and also to either construct, rehab, do something to set up a police substation out in the 380 corridor so that we can meet those growth needs. So this is kind of a combination of numbers that have been set aside in the budget planning for that. And just like we did with fire last year, I anticipate in next year's budget, that'll be whittled down, or that'll be specified a little bit more where we're listing the actual positions and the actual timing for that. The American Rescue Plan Act allocation, spoke just a minute ago about the reuse line that's coming out of this. This is basically the number. It's a little over this. It's 4.23 or something like that. But basically, 4.2 million will be coming to the town of Little Elm from the federal government. We are a direct allocation city, so we're getting our money directly from the Treasury rather than going through the state. But of this funding, we're using a pretty significant portion of it to do the rehab of Town Hall. Much of the emphasis of this rehab was to address, the pandemic-related employee safety and spacing requirements we need. So that was an eligible project. We've got an incentive voucher program for the EDC in this money, and we've got the utility projects that I talked about a minute ago. But we do have a little over $1.2 million that we have unallocated that we're holding aside, waiting to see what broadband improvement opportunities exist. I've talked with Commissioner Marchant with Denton County. He's kind of leading the charge for a countywide broadband initiative. Don't know exactly what that's going to look like yet, but we told him that we'd be very interested in partnering. So we are leaving some of that money unallocated because I know broadband improvements are a big priority for the area. West Side Emergency Interconnection. This is just kind of what it says. This is for water utilities, so that in the case of a water emergency, we have a connection so that we can have some redundancy in the system. Any questions about any of those bigger projects that are kind of scheduled in the budget? Okay. All right. Fund balance and reserve. Always excited to talk about this. We do a great job of having strong fund balances and strong reserves. A lot of that is intentional, how we use our fund balance. We want to make sure that we're keeping enough set aside for a rainy day fund, which by our local ordinance is 25%, but also that we are, kind of planning for the future using some of that reserve. So we have a general fund reserve plan of about $22.7 million, which is great. However, we do have a planned drawdown of that reserve over the next several years. That's intentional. That's typically how we do it. We plan, future year drawdowns in order to keep up with growth of services that may get there before we have revenues from, basically the residents that those services are there to provide. So just to kind of clarify what I'm saying, if we have a new home that comes to town, as soon as that home is built and a resident moves in, they have the need for services day one. But it's usually about a year and a half before that home starts producing any revenue. And so there's usually kind of a gap between when we need to provide services versus when we get property tax revenue, to fund those services. So we use our fund balance, our reserve. We have a planned drawdown over several years to accommodate that. But at the end of the 5-year budget horizon, we're still at that 25% fund reserve that's required by law. We have a utility fund working capital of $17.3 million. So that's 315 days of working capital in the utility fund. And then, as always, we put a council contingency forth in case there are projects, priorities that come up throughout the year. We have a $100,000 council contingency set aside for things that you as a group may identify as priorities throughout the year. Any questions about our fund balance? It is always kind of cool. We've been on several rating calls. We obviously had the Moody's rating increase a few weeks ago, and then we were on a rating call with S&P last week. It's always great to hear them talk about our fund balance because they're just so complimentary of how we run the finances and how conservative we are and how well managed the finances are. And a lot of it is that fund balance that we're able to plan for. So that's always kind of cool when we hear that from the rating agencies. All right, employees, our largest operational expense. We have 380 full-time equivalents. That is somewhere over 400 bodies. We do have a lot of part-time employees, especially now with the code. But we're at 380 full-time equivalent employees. That costs us about $33.8 million a year. As you can see by the breakdown, where do our team members reside? The vast majority of them are in public safety. So 58% of our team members are in public safety, 8% are in community services, 4% in public works, 13% in culture and recreation, 9% in utilities, and 8% in general government. So as far as what we have planned, we have in next year, we're adding an additional court clerk for municipal court. We're adding the public safety analyst that I mentioned earlier. We're moving our part-time purchasing tech to a full-time buyer. We do have a graduate engineer in the development services department that will work with Wesley. That's just because of the mass workload that's over there with all the projects and all the growth. We're really struggling with capacity in our engineering department. So we are adding staff in that area. The GIS technician, that's part of the overall GIS improvement package that we talked about earlier. The overtime relief firefighter, the utility systems tech 1 that comes out of public works. And we plan to continue the city management intern for the first semester while we're not fully staffed in the administrative services department. And these next couple years, what these don't include, they don't include the police officers that we'll be adding for the new police beat out on 380. Right now, they're sitting in a general contingency number. So next year, when you see this, the number of police officers and police personnel will increase as we kind of pin those down with timing. Also, something that we have in here that we don't have listed, we also have a Cottonwood Park maintenance crew contingency in the budget. We know when Cottonwood Park is completed, that we will have additional maintenance needs because that'll be, that'll go from a relatively low maintenance area to a much higher maintenance. So we do have, Kelly, did we put that in year 2 or 3? Do you remember?
We put that in year 3.
In year 3. So in year 3, which is likely about the time when we'll get through the core, get everything constructed, we do have a contingency number to add parks maintenance staff for Cottonwood Park. And that's probably a nice surprise to Chad. I don't think he knew that we did that. We're actually able to add that as a last minute thing to take care of it in the future. So, let's see. So, but anyway, so yeah, the numbers of actual bodies are not accounted for yet in that police beat or that Cottonwood Park staff. But in 2022, or the year 2 of the budget, we do plan on adding another detective. Year 3, we do plan on adding another traffic officer and another warrant officer in police. And then this is where we start seeing the phase in of the firefighters. So we plan in this year to add 7 firefighters, the next year 4, and then the year after that 7. Those numbers could move up or down depending on if there are funding opportunities through federal grants or through contracts with other cities that could initiate speeding up that time frame. However, if growth slows in Spiritas Ranch and it doesn't look like the fire station 4 is going to open in our time frame, we could push those out. But either way, we plan on having a 3-year staffing phase in for fire station number 4, so that we're not just training that many people all at once. So we're going to phase those in over time.
Hey Matt, regarding the traffic officer, right now I think next year or hopefully next year the construction on 380 starts and stuff. Do you think there'll be more issues up there and we need more police officers up there? We might have to expedite this in 2023, 2023, or you think we're fine?
I don't know that there will. I mean, the construction on 380 will definitely have an impact on everything, but I don't know that it will really have an impact on it. The construction on 380 is going to make it much more congested and much slower. I don't know that it would change the speeding that these are really there to deal with. But certainly, if we start getting into a sense where we're overwhelmed, we can always look at moving those up. But I don't know how much of an impact the construction would have on the function that this officer will play. But if we always, even though this is a 5-year plan, you can tell there's a lot more specific information in year 1 because that's the very clear picture. So if it looks like that's going to be a need, we'll certainly address it.
Okay, thank you.
Rodney, you want to add anything to that, Chief?
No, Matt, I agree with your assessment on that. It's going to be one of those fluid situations that we may have to adjust our plan a little bit, but I feel like this is solid moving into it at this point.
Okay. No, I understand. I just want to make sure that we consider that also because right now it's bad. Hopefully traffic doesn't make it worse. So, but thank you.
Jeremy, did you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, it was prior to Rodney speaking to that. I guess my question or just supplemental question to that was how much does the Texas DPS supplement or add to that, that we know of compared to the resources that we put in?
I would say very little. I don't. Rodney, have you ever seen?
Yeah, Jeremy, that's your assessment and Matt's assessment is correct. We don't see a whole lot of DPS. They're assigned to the tollways, 35 other areas. If we get one coming down 380, typically it's because they're coming home to their residence and they live in our city. So I really don't think that the sheriff's office, Northeast, anybody that's on that corridor, we get more help out of those folks. It's mainly, DPS, a large contingency of their group has all been sent to the border to work. So we have less troopers in our county than we've ever had.
Is it fair to say that we still carry kind of the responsibility and burden of that shared stretch though?
I would say that's correct.
Yeah, I would definitely, this is somewhat understandable because with the neighboring cities that are involved, it's very much on the outskirts of their community and very, one side of the road is one city, one side of the road is the other. And so I think even, in that whole area, we have definitely assumed, most of the responsibility, which is good. I mean, we kind of knew that going into it several years ago. We knew that someone really needed to. And so I think that we are the primary agency that's responsible for that stretch. All right. Kind of breaking into the individual funds. The general fund, it's kind of just the big, just as it says, the general governmental fund. This is where you will find the basic services of government, of municipal government funded, such as police, fire, streets, development services, parks maintenance, administration, and our internal services. So we're seeing about a $2 million or so increase in the general fund this year. That's our total, $42,339,897. This is without transfers to the other fund, by the way. Just we do transfer funds back and forth. The general fund, this is where the revenue comes from. You can see we're heavily dependent on property tax in the general fund. The exciting thing is that our second greatest source of revenue used to be licenses and permits. It's been the intentional goal over the last decade to try to reduce the reliance on permit fees as a revenue source and increase sales tax as a percentage of our revenue. Reason for that is at some point in the future, all the permits for new lots will be sold in Little Elm and that revenue will go away. So while we do have plenty of growth left, I'd say 5, 7, 10 years that we still need to be cognizant that those permit fees will not exist forever. And so Jeanette and her team has been specifically tasked with recruiting retail opportunities through the strategic plan and through her board. And you can see that's been successful because sales tax makes up a much bigger percentage of our general fund revenues than it used to. But overall, if you compare that to other cities, we're pretty low in sales tax per capita. And that's just because of the very residential nature of our community. I don't know that there's really ever any way around that. We're always going to be very reliant on property taxes because we just don't have those massive commercial corridors, like a tollway or like a 121. So that'll always be a little bit of a challenge, but it is great to see that piece of the pie for sales tax is going up. Our expenditures out of the general fund, this is where the money goes. Again, you're going to see this pretty much similar in any city you look at around here. Public safety makes up the bulk of the general fund expenditures with 58% of expenditures going out there. General government, 17%, community services, 9%, culture and recreation, 8%, and public works, 8%. The utility fund, this is 100% self-supporting fund, an enterprise fund that basically manages our utility system. So it operates as a business and utilizes full accrual accounting, and it segregates and distinguishes water operations, sewer operations, and each of those operations is intended to be self-supporting. So this budget year, we are in the second year of a multi-year rate package. And so this year, the water and sewer combined operations will have a 2% water rate increase that's part of that multi-year package. The sewer rates remain the same, and the package includes rate adjustments all throughout 2024. Utility fund revenue, this is where it all comes from. See, water sales make up the bulk of it, but there is some, sewer sales, pretty good percentage as well. This is where the expenditures happen. So you can see that the water purchases, this is our treated water purchase from North Texas Municipal Water District. This makes up the biggest portion, followed closely by our debt service payments. So, we buy the treated water from North Texas Municipal Water, and we, store it in our towers, and then we own, operate, and maintain the distribution system that delivers it to the customers. The Parks and Recreation Fund. Several years ago, we set aside a Parks and Rec fund for the more business oriented services in Parks and Recreation. It's been our goal to have most of our recreation programming be self-supporting and to cost recover. And I'm very excited that we are, for the most part, planning this. We do have a transfer of close to $150,000 in FY25 or FY26, excuse me. But the thing with this fund that we have to realize is that for this fund to break even, all of our Parks and Recreation revenue generating services have to produce 125% of their expenses. Because of our fund balance requirements, for every dollar that we spend, we have to earn $1.25, to satisfy those. So the fact that we're all of the recreation programming, special events, the Cove, the rec center, all of those things in this fund, the fact that over the 5-year budget, there's only $150,000 subsidy, that's pretty impressive considering that they still have to maintain that 25% reserve. In years past, this has gone down from over $500,000 a year in subsidy to what you're seeing now. So they're doing great work with a great business mindset, even in spite of the pandemic that really had a huge impact on the rec center membership and the rec center numbers. They're recovering from that. The Cove is doing great. Our business development position is doing a wonderful job recruiting businesses and sponsors and facility buyouts. Our special events are, the ones that are supposed to be paying for themselves are paying for themselves. And so this is a really, really cool thing, because a lot of those services in the community that not everybody uses, the less subsidy we have to this fund, it means that it's user fees supporting these rather than taxpayers who aren't using the services. So that's kind of why we set it aside in this fund. And the fact that we've become this successful in it is a real statement to where we've come from. The Landscape Fund, primarily funded by tower leases from telecom companies, also some transfers in from the Solid Waste Fund. This is where we pay our contract mowing, communications. We do have a pretty hefty amount of money in there this year. As you see around town, us, every business, we're not unique. Everyone was just decimated by the winter storm, and all the plantings, all the palm trees, all the grasses in the medians. It's really, really bad. It's there's limited plant availability. There's it's a challenging time. So we do have $150,000 set aside in that fund to recover from that, which we anticipate will start in the fall when the planting season is on. And then we do have phase 2 of the wayfinding sign project. This is actually in the bid that was approved, but we split the funding into 2 years. And so that's what it looks like in the Landscape Fund. TERS number 3, everyone always comments that it's such a lively page because they have their own logo. It's very exciting and festive. But this is this is the Lakefront TERS. So this is kind of what we plan to spend out of there. We do our beach sand replacement out of there. We do the decorative banners, the utility box program, sponsorship for July Jubilee. The TERS actually pays for the fireworks in the park, and then the town pays for the fireworks display at the secondary location. We do have a good amount of money set aside for debt service. And then we have the parking lot expansion that we mentioned earlier that's funded out of the TERS. We also cover some operational expenditures out of here, programming in the lakefronts, marketing from the lakefront, videos. We do transfer money from the TERS to the general fund. The TERS pays for one of the marketing positions that is primarily tasked with marketing and doing the programming for the TERS, and then we pay for eFrogs out of the TERS.
Hey Matt, one thing regarding the eFrog, can we do better marketing for the eFrog, because we have that, but still a lot of people don't know aware of it. So it'll be nice during summertime comes up, we just let them know, because this way less concern about people parking and stuff. But yeah, that's a common question when I tell them they have no idea. So
yeah, absolutely. We can definitely. I think they're kind of wrapping it up for the summer. What are they here for another couple of weeks, Chad?
Yeah, they're here through Labor Day, and then they come back for Autumn Fest.
Yeah, so just right now, but maybe next year we'll just a little bit more aggressive about it, so more people is aware of and less concerns about the parking during the summertime for us.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Then moving on to the CDC fund. This is the dedicated sales tax that funds the Community Development Corporation. Historically and primarily what we've used our CDC fund for here in Little Elm has been park improvements. And so you can kind of see the general plans. We've got the lighting detection system, which I believe that's kind of just the annual user fee, isn't it, Chad? That's not any addition to it.
Yeah, they funded the equipment and installation a few years ago, and that's the recurring cost for the software.
We keep a miscellaneous park project line item in here just so we can repair and do projects that come up that may be a last minute. We have the debt service payments. We have a remodel of the lakefront grill, and then we have a shower replacement at Little Elm Beach. So this fund will end up, as we talked about in our capital workshop, this fund will end up with a pretty hefty fund balance. And so this will be a potential funding source for further priorities from the council and the CDC board in the future. The drainage fund, we have a drainage fee associated with the utility bills. And kind of the projects that we have planned out here, that's where that lakefront trail drainage and concrete addition, that's where that will be funded. We have a flood warning system at Lakeshore Drive. We have an outfall line at Winfield Farms that needs to be repaired, and a significant project at Shell Beach that will happen in the future years. The solid waste fund.
Hey Matt, question real quick. I mean, I remember that this drainage stuff popped up when we hit a certain population level. Is busting the $50,000 mark going to bring up any more obligations other than having to take over maintenance of the traffic lights?
Doug, what's the population threshold for the next level of stormwater quality?
I believe that after 50,000, we do have some more possible testing requirements that we may have to do. I mean, we already have a stormwater permit. We're responsible for a stormwater plan where we do things like clean storm oil and debris separators. We do other things like educational, and then we have a storm maintenance crew that does these projects as well as maintenance throughout the town. But I can look into it further, but there may be some testing that we may have to do from time to time on stormwater if we cross that threshold.
That's fine. I just remember that it was kind of not really a surprise. It just came along much quicker than we anticipated. And now separators, I remember, were kind of a big capital outlay we had to do when the last population trigger came into play. So I just didn't know. I know the $50,000 number mark's been thrown out. I know what that might do. We still, the developers still have to put that emblem on all the storm drains, right?
I don't know. I'll have to check and see if that's. I know it's in our specifications, but I'll check and see if that's the case. I know many of them in town. The last I was out, I've seen them in some of the newer subdivisions.
I hadn't really been in the newer subdivision. I know they got put on all the old ones, and I thought they were a requirement to had to be included with the manufacturing. If just kind of, on a side note, if you find some that we're still missing, can you let me know, please?
Yeah, I sure can.
Okay.
All right. The solid waste fund. It's pretty boring fund, really. It's where we pay the solid waste contract, and we do fund the spring cleanups. It does provide us a transfer to the general fund and a transfer to the landscape fund. We do fund the courtesy drop site out of this. That 65,000 number that we have over there, that doesn't include the fully burdened cost of staffing and equipment. Reason why it wouldn't be a bad idea for us to try to break that down a little bit and allocate those costs to that. But it's a lot of the staffing and equipment that's used for the drop site there. It's shared among other portions of public works. So, but that's basically what it costs to run the drop site without the labor and equipment.
Hey, Matt, a question on that. That thing is getting used all the time. And everybody that I know actually is very envious of the fact that we have that, and nobody else that I know has access to something like that. And unless I'm mistaken, aren't we having to close early almost every weekend because of capacity?
Yeah, yes. The drop site is definitely a high maintenance endeavor for the town of Little Elm. It's one of those things that we will never be able to not do, but would be great if we never really got into that business in the first place. It's pretty unheard of that you've got the bulk trash disposal options that you do in Little Elm. The fact that we have a free drop-off site every weekend, and that we have free to the no additional cost pickup on the curb twice a month. That is Cadillac service if I've ever seen it. So we probably will need to do some things at the drop site to manage the load. It's been a challenging year. COVID got everyone out cleaning out their garages, doing weird stuff. We do have a lot of contractor trash that, that comes by and, tries to use it, but it's a challenge. And so, we're looking at some numbers, we're watching it. There'll probably be some recommendations in the future that could include limiting hours on Friday so that maybe we have a full Saturday and Sunday with it. But yeah, because I would recommend against ever expanding that service. Just because of the fact of what we offer curbside, it's pretty significant bulk options that we have in town. So, but again, it's also never a service that we could close. I think that we would all be run out of town if we tried to close the drop site. So,
yeah. Oh yeah, I think that if we had to, we could actually probably get public support to increase the tax rate if we could increase the drop site.
Yeah.
The only things I think they would agree to pay for. So.
Yeah, people may actually let us use youth sports fields for a drop site if it, but
Yeah, it's just I just cannot believe the amount of. It's just I shudder to think about how much will be on the curb every time I'm in the courtesy drop site, seeing what people are dropping off, and knowing. It's got to go somewhere, and I guess it's better that they're hauling it over there for free versus leaving it on the curb, because we would look like, a tornado ridden zone if we didn't have the courtesy drop site, because it would all be lined up on the curb in front of down every street. So
I know it's amazing. And you see it in every community. It never ceases to amaze me. And especially here, let alone being a newer community, right? In communities that have, neighborhoods that have been there for 50, 60 years and big acreages and all, you can kind of understand it, but it baffles my mind where all this stuff comes from and how how it never stops. But
I'm there probably every weekend, but I have, I'll have a stack of cardboard boxes or something kind of small. And the guy's like, really? It said, there's, of course, the guy in front of me has a truck piled all the way up 20 feet high, and the guy behind me's got a trailer. So he kind of looks at me like, really? You came all the way over here for this? But
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will probably have some. We're tracking data now and looking at numbers, and we're kind of watching it to get some, so we can get some annual numbers and kind of look at it. But we'll probably have some recommendations for some policy changes in the future, just so it can be a little bit more managed, because we do quite frequently have to shut it down early on Sunday because we run out of room. So
yeah, I'll keep it, because it's one of my friends that live in Oak Point and Lakewood Village, and I'm like, well, don't just take it to your car. Oh, that's right, you don't have one. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, well, I don't think there's any chance that we wouldn't keep it. That's definitely one of those services that can never really go away. All right, some other funds just to touch on. We do have the VERF, the Vehicle and Equipment Replacement Fund. This is the fund where we fund a vehicle as a capital purchase, but then based on the life schedule of that vehicle, we contribute an annual amount of money to the VERF, so that when the replacement of that vehicle comes up, the money is sitting there ready to purchase it. So it's a very good fund. I think we established it 7 or 8 years ago. But it's been very good for us, keeps our fleet new, keeps our maintenance costs low. Again, we've enhanced this whole project or program with the addition of Enterprise as our fleet management company. They're really helping us with the auctions, with the replacement schedules. So we do have that VERF. The Street Improvement and Maintenance Fund. So the public renewed this sales tax again this year. And so it's anticipated that it's a little over $2 million in revenue. And then we also contribute $400,000 from the general fund to this, so that we can do our annual street maintenance projects. The PEG fund, it's a fund that we get a fee from the cable bills that comes in, and its goal is to improve broadcast and viewing quality of council meetings and public information. We can only use this for capital purchases. We can't use it for operations, but you can see we do have some good fund balance, and so we'll be looking at ways to enhance our public information, public communication with that money. All right, our debt. This is existing debt. You can just kind of take a look at the chart there. and kind of just all the schedule of everything that we have outstanding. And then kind of just wanted to touch on the upcoming CO issuance. I know I touched on this in the email the other day, but after we got the certified tax values in, and after we had the council capital workshop, I think it kind of painted a clearer picture of what opportunities we had for, what the priorities were, and then what the opportunities would be for funding. So we, if you recall, we did the notice of intent for this 2021 CO issuance on June 1st, and I think we were right at $30 million was the number. And of course, that's a number that you can't exceed. We had intended to kind of work those down to make a recommendation. So what we'll be recommending is a $24 million CO rather than a 30. And these are the projects that we anticipate funding from that issuance. We have the TERS supported debt of $2 million, which will be the big portion of the lawn at the lakefront. We have the CDC supported debt of $4 million for Cottonwood Park. And then I know that we had talked several times about what general government debt would we want to sell, towards our projects. And my recommendation is that we move forward with, I think we originally proposed $10 million, and we'd kind of talked about that, depending on where our property values ended up. I'm proposing that we do $9 million rather than 10, because that will give us sufficient funding to do the youth softball complex, the Cottonwood baseball improvements, and the Little Elm Park camping improvements. It gives a couple $100,000 of buffer in there so that there will be money, for cost overruns, and also if that Cottonwood Park, if this project goes over budget, which we do anticipate. So that's my recommendation, is that we, rather than doing the 10 million that we had talked about, that we do 9. And then the rest of that issuance is utility supported debt. So that's where the service center expansion is paid for, the 24-inch Manziel transmission line, the wastewater treatment plant building expansion, wastewater treatment plant clarifier rehab, and the utilities for the Cottonwood Park project. So that's not directly in your budget book, but it obviously has a big role in this whole budget process. After we notice, or after we kind of go through the process next week, we're certainly not locked into those numbers until you vote on it, but we really need to stick with the number that we post for sale when we're taking bids for the bond. So I wanted to kind of include this in our budget discussion to make sure everyone was still comfortable with this as the funding source for our for the capital priorities that you expressed in July. The biggest reason for the recommendation of funding it this way is so that we can have the capital fund reserve set aside in our existing reserve, so that we can jump on the next priority, which was identified as the camping and RV grounds at Cottonwood Park. As soon as we find a private partner for that project, the most efficient way to go forward with that would be to have the cash on hand rather than have to go through a debt issuance. So that's kind of what it came down to. We're already issuing the debt, so we might as well fund those projects with it, since the tax rate can absorb it and still go down. So is there any questions I can answer about that, about any of these projects, or about the funding recommendations?
Looks good to me, Matt.
All right. Well, that kind of wraps up the presentation. So now I just kind of open it up to you guys, if there's anything that maybe I haven't addressed, or any specific questions that we need to work through, or really anything.
I noticed in the budget, I don't know what the retirement system is up to 13 point, where's it at?
13.83, I believe.
13.8, is that what it's actually, is that going to be, I guess, how maintainable is that? Is that a pretty steady number that we anticipate, or is it going to creep up, or is it going to kind of continue to creep up? Because it looks like, it has been almost 10 years, but it's gone up almost 4%, 3.5%.
Yeah, I think I think it's pretty stable. It's TMRS is a very well-funded, stable plan. We're very well funded. And if you recall, this was an item on the council agenda a couple weeks ago. to approve some of these changes with TMRS. But I think, Doug and I talked with some representatives from TMRS when we were at a city management conference in June, and then Dee Dee and Doug and Kelly met with their representatives a few weeks ago. But just different factors are contributing to it. For the first time, we're starting to get multiple employees that have more than 20 years of service, which is kind of wild. If you think about that, until I think last year, we only had three members of our team, Kathy, Doug, and Dee Dee, who had ever served more than 20 years in this organization. And so now we're actually getting a few that are crossing that 20 threshold. So there's more people eligible for retirement. As our payroll grows, that obviously factors into it as well. But I think overall it's very stable. There's nothing, they feel that we're very well funded. They feel that our TMRS is very secure. And I don't think there's any red flags. Doug, do you want to touch on that?
I don't have mine. I think you pretty well covered everything. It's, I think the last when we were talking to them, our plan is somewhere around 86% funded currently. And we've had some additional discussions. I think Kelly and myself and representatives from TMRS about maybe coming up with a stabilization type plan, whereby we could possibly pay some more into it at this time, or set up a plan where we pay just a little bit more, but it allows us to stabilize that rate over a long period of time. So that we don't see years when we go up or have increases like we experienced this year. A lot of that's due to the fact too, like Matt said, that we've hired a lot of new people, and a lot of the people that we've hired have been experienced people. So people that we've taken away from other cities with a lot of time and experience at those cities. So they're not people that are coming, they're coming into the local government with 1 or 2 years worth of service, but we're actually hiring some really experienced hands, and they come with us, with 20 years of service.
Oh, that's fine. I know we're doing a good job with that. I just know that maybe in past years, further back, that there was some potential for volatility. So I'm glad we're doing some stuff to take out some of that volatility, which definitely helps with budgeting. So, okay.
You mentioned TMRS, so I'll mention benefits a little bit. We typically, budget 10% increase in health insurance benefits, just, trying to anticipate, what the market's doing. In the past several years, we've done better than that. So we've come in under budget on our benefits increase. I think we'll be in the same boat this year. Right now, I think there's an initial proposal of a 3% increase on benefits, but we're going to work to get that flat like we have in the past. So that's an expense that we do have covered in the budget that hopefully is going to come down as well. So overall, I think we're in great shape. We've got strong staff. We're able to pay our team the mid-market rate and reward them with raises for for the work they do. We've got a budget that essentially, it lowers the tax rate. It focuses on public safety growth, parks improvements, youth sports. It's a pretty sweet situation we have in Little Elm, Texas.
It is, man. On top of all that, you look at two things that we're currently doing. Not only are we doing capital projects, but we're lowering the tax rate at the same time. How many cities or towns are doing that?
Yeah, it's a culmination of strong political support that we have with you guys, strong staff, a great growing and stable local economy. It's just it's good. It's as much work as the budget is, and as much of a roller coaster as it can be throughout the months, especially in July, when we've kind of made the budget, but we're waiting to see what the revenues really are going to be. This is always a great night because it seems to be that we're always in situations where we're getting to tell an exciting story, and we're getting to look forward to the things that we're going to bring to the community to satisfy the needs that they've expressed to you and to staff. And the fact that we're able to keep going with those projects and meet our growth needs, reward our team, which is really at the end of the day what makes us so special is the people that work for the town of Little Elm are just outstanding. And it's always good. It's always when we go through this discussion, it's always a little bit of a celebration of how great of a community we are.
No, I want to give you the accolades for, all the work y'all are doing to help keep that health insurance rate flat and savings. I mean, that's a huge accomplishment. That says a lot about the commitment to taking care of the staff, because you said the staff is what makes it a successful town. Without the good staff and good leadership, we wouldn't have any of this other stuff. So thank you, everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you,
Right,
everyone.
so next steps, I guess kind of on our time frame. So regarding the debt, next week we will publish the notice of sale and what else, Kelly? What's the other acronym? I should pull up my little chart.
The POS will be issuing the POS statement and going out for bids. I'm trying to find my folder.
So next week will be when the bidders notice the sale, and then at the 17th council meeting is when the action is taken.
We'll be getting our S&P rating that next week as well.
And then so that's the debt schedule, and then the budget schedule. Our hearing on the tax rate is September 3rd, correct, Kelly?
September 7th. August 17th is we're having our first public hearing on the budget. And then September 7th is our public hearing on the tax rate, and we will be adopting the budget that same night.
So that's kind of the schedule moving forward, and then all of it officially goes into effect October 1st.
So August 17th is when the public will have first access or glance to the budget that we've seen tonight.
It is also posted online, Mr.
Okay.
Lucas.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they have access. They have access to it now. It's been delivered. It's been filed. The 17th is the time if anyone from the public wants to speak on it. It's their opportunity to do so. It's out there publicly now.
No, there's very many eager people from the youth association that are eager every day. So yeah, I anticipate them being there in full force on the 17th.
All right. Well, cool. Well, that makes me happy because, with what we're proposing, hopefully those are going to be supportive folks, because we've got a good solution for them.
So I would like to mention to the council, if you have any questions about the budget, to redirect them to the homepage. There is a link right there on the homepage that says fiscal year 21-2022 proposed budget. And that'll provide them all the links to the tax rate as well as the budget that you have in your hands.
That's good info, Kelly. Thank you.
All right.
Good.
Well, if there's nothing else for me, Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right. So again, job well done. I probably say this every year when we go through budget. I can remember the days where we went line by line by line, and budget was like, I really wanted to take a break that entire week. But you guys seem to do it so well year by year. And we expect a budget session from 6 to 9 p.m. and possibly another day. And you wrap it up in less than 2 hours, and not just wrap it up, but with great detail and full understanding of what's going on, where we've come from and where we're going. For us just to be able to lower our tax rate and do capital projects, knowing we are keeping our insurance rate flat, public safety, it just speaks volume to the work you guys are doing. So for me, I personally appreciate everybody that took part in it. I appreciate the council for always showing our support, because we make you guys' job so much easier. And that's what we're here for. So I appreciate everyone.
So no meeting tomorrow night?
No meeting tomorrow night?
Michael, you can attend it. You sound excited.
Mike, you want part two?
Me and Mike tried our best. We asked too many questions and stuff. We did our best. So Mike, me and you did our best job.
Those of you that are going to the ball game tomorrow night, you get to go enjoy it without having to have budget interfere with it.
Oh yeah. Thank you, Matt, for that. I forgot.
Thank you, CoServe. CoServe is hooking you guys up. So All right.
That's all I have, Ben.
All right. Thank you guys. We will see you soon. If there are questions that come up, or as the community's reading the budget, if there's questions that they pose to you that they just don't understand, I'm happy to talk with you guys, talk to them. So just let us know what we can do to help, and if there's any further information we need to provide in the coming weeks. All right.
All right, thank you.
Have a good
Thanks,
evening.
everyone.
God bless everyone.